If you kind of recognize the last name, then you've been a college football fan for a long time. Zach Selman's father, Dewey, and his uncles, Leroy and Lucius Selman, were all defensive linemen on the Oklahoma football teams in the 1970s. His father, Dewey, and his uncle, Leroy, both earned consensus All-America and academic All-America honors in 1974 and 1975, and Lucius was a consensus All-American in 1973. That is a family where the ties to the University of Oklahoma run very, very deep. Zach Selman, who is the guy that we're more interested in right now, played football at Wake Forest, graduated from there, went back to Oklahoma, got a master's degree in education and an emphasis in intercollegiate athletics administration. He started out as a graduate assistant in the Oklahoma athletics department and was getting his master's while he was a GA. And that started in 2009 after he finished at Wake Forest. And before he left Oklahoma for North Carolina, he held the titles of Assistant Director of Development, Associate Director of Development, and then Director of Capital Gifts. All of those fell into the fundraising category. He left Oklahoma to go and work for Bubba Cunningham at the University of North Carolina, another guy who is highly respected in the college athletics world. And then in 2015, returned to Oklahoma and has worked in varying and growing roles at Oklahoma, and is, if he does indeed leave for Mississippi State, it will be as deputy athletics director. Hey, Dad, the only thing that is missing in terms of profile for Zach Selman is being an actual athletics director.
Yeah.
Every single box that could be checked has been checked in his 15 years working in intercollegiate athletics, 09 to now, 13 years, decade and a half. He's done everything that he should do to get to this point.
Yep, and now he's going to get rewarded with the big job. He's going to get an SEC athletic director's job. If you talk to some Oklahoma people, if you look at message boards and such, obviously they look at this as kind of like an internship, right? That he'll go down there, he'll understand how to make it work, and then he'll come back when it's time for Castiglione to retire. Well, who cares? They're only going to do that if he does a good job at Mississippi State. So if he's only here 4 or 5 years and goes back to Oklahoma, it means he did a great job for 4 or 5 years, and then you move on. This is what college athletics is, The days of Pete Boone and Larry Templeton being in the big chair for 20, 25 years, I think those days are pretty much over. Guys are going to move around. Guys are going to find new jobs. We saw today the commissioner of the Big Ten, one of the most powerful people in college athletics, is gone after a few years. He's now in the NFL as the president of the Chicago Bears. So if Selman comes in, does a fine job, he'll move on, so be it. And Mississippi State will go on to the next guy. If he does a poor job, Mississippi State will fire him and go on to the next guy. That's what college athletics is right now. But young leadership, a guy who I asked to some people about him, they say he'll dive headfirst into fundraising, not only from the university perspective, but from the NIL perspective. He will be a person who pushes for people to join the Bulldog Initiative and to donate there. A guy who, in my opinion, has one of the best qualities that Scott Strickland had. A man who's concerned about fan engagement, fan experience at games, because I think that is very, very important. And a guy that, like I said earlier, who is going to come in with a new perspective and a new view of how to do things and isn't going to be beholden to the old ways of doing things. I think that is incredibly important for Mississippi State.
There are two types of people or two types of jobs within athletics administration. And they're both incredibly important. You have to have both of them work and work well to have an athletics department that succeeds. There are the people whose job is primarily internal, and then people whose job is primarily external. So internal would be facilities, staff management, and you need somebody at an executive level besides the AD who kind of manages the department on a day-to-day basis. Ticketing operations would kind of fall on the internal side of things. Maintenance, that falls on all of that stuff has to happen. And then you got the external side, which is your marketing people, your fan engagement people, your fundraising people, the folks that are going to all of the events and are shaking hands. Sports administration would kind of fall on the internal side, but so there's some carryover between those. I say all that to underscore what you were saying. Everything that Zach Selman has done in his career has been on the external side, right? Fan engagement, donor engagement, reaching out to people, connecting with people, being a face of a school that's not necessarily like the number one face of a school. That's Joe Castiglione. You made the reference a second ago to Pete Boone and Larry Templeton being in the chair for a really long time. Joe Castiglione is starting his 25th year at Oklahoma. He's been the AD there since 1998.
Oh, for those top tier jobs, yeah. For if you're at Oklahoma, if you're at Ohio State, if you're at Alabama, yeah, because you've reached the pinnacle. But for schools like Mississippi State and Ole Miss, I don't think you're going to see those career lifers anymore.
I disagree with you. I don't even think that's the case at those pinnacle jobs anymore. Look, I don't know how public this is. I think I've mentioned it on the show. Greg Byrne tried to get the commissioner's job in the Big 12. I mean, you would think that Alabama is a destination job. I mean, you just mentioned it a second ago. Commissioner of the Big 10, that is a destination job that Kevin Warren had for 5 years and now is headed to be the president of the Chicago Bears. I don't think any of these are legacy jobs anymore.
Which is good for the Bears because he's prone to want to cancel seasons, and the way they've played lately, they might welcome that. So, good hire for Chicago.
You know what? So I was thinking a second ago, or a few minutes ago, when Kevin Warren's name first came out. His legacy will be two-pronged in the Big Ten. An overreaction to COVID and being intent on canceling an entire season, which is about the biggest black mark you could put on a commissioner, and ushering in a game-changing media rights deal that will benefit the Big Ten for the next decade. And that's about the biggest highlighted circle check mark you could put next to an athletics director or a commissioner's put on his bio. And my guess is that the big money raised for through the TV deal is what is more attractive than the fact that, well, they played that college football season. Even if he was against it, they played it.
I have seen NFL people say that they think he's going to try to make a move and be in line for the next commissioner. And maybe that's possible, but, man, I'm here to tell you that NFL people will not like the fact that he tried to cancel the college football season in 2020. That is not something that the NFL would stand for at all.
But they will like the TV deal that he negotiated for the Big Ten.
Yeah, but a lot of people can do that. I mean, it's the NFL. Did you see the ratings again this year? Guess what? They were awesome because that's what the NFL does. But if it was one thing that was certain, if you want to think back to that 2020 year when there was so much uncertain about the teams we cover closely, what did we always say, though? You know the NFL's going to play. There's no doubt. You guys are worried about college football, and we understand because that's in limbo. But, buddy, Roger Goodell in the NFL is going to play. Like, we've got that coming this fall. Guaranteed they're going to find a way to play. They would move to Mars if that's what it took to put games on. Or that new planet that NASA discovered that's in the whatever the zone is, distance from a star where it can have an atmosphere and water that's suitable for life. The NFL would find a way to play games there if that's what it took for them to play games.
Yeah. No, you're not
That's
wrong
how
on that.
dedicated they are. But anyway.
Pulling it back into Zach Selman just for a second. Hey, Dad, this is my opinion outside looking in. I think you echo this. This feels like knock it out of the park for Mississippi State. In terms of, do you have reason to be excited about the hire for an athletics director? My answer is yes. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to when John Cohen left, I said my hiring philosophy, what I would have searched for was the number 2 guy at a big program. Well, that's what Mississippi State has gone and done. A young guy, only 37. Mississippi State's got like young leadership in place, young football coach, young athletic director. So I like that. And yeah, I think this is on the surface appears to be a good to great hire for Mississippi.
I was talking about the youth, the energy that will be in the room when you talk about Mississippi State athletics moving forward. Zach Arnett, 36 years old, head football coach. Zach Selman, if it gets done, 37-year-old athletics director. Going to be a new offensive coordinator, and we're going to get to that in a second. But if it turns out to be the guy that we think it's going to be, then you're talking about a guy that is very, very young in terms of coordinating offense. Hey, Dad, there is a level of excitement that goes along with that. Should there also be a level of concern about kind of an across-the-board lack of experience, not because it's a lack of experience, because it's lack of experience at a place that has a $115 million a year budget and competes in the most difficult conference in college athletics?
You know, from the administrative standpoint with Selman, I would say no. I mean, this is a guy who's been working around big numbers his entire career, and is going to be set up to do that. That doesn't concern me. Obviously, when you have a first-time head coach in football, that's always a concern, because how is he going to react to things, and you just don't know. You don't have anything to base that off of. So, you know, if you had concern with Arnett, I get that, but I feel like there's enough veteran presence on his staff. I mean, Will Friend has coached for many years. Tony Hughes, many years coaching football. So David Turner, same thing. He's got some veteran guys there to lean on. But if I were going to have a concern, it would definitely be more about Arnett as a first-time coach than Selman as a first-time and young athletic director.
An interesting note or caveat, however you want to describe it, with the new AD is, when is the next coaching search he's going to have to do?
That's a good point.
I mean, maybe one of his guys or gals gets poached at some point, but football coach is brand new. Basketball coach is brand new. Baseball coach won a national championship 2 years ago. Women's basketball coach is brand new. So it's probably an easier adjustment for a young guy behind the wheel for the first time of his own department when you're not going to have to do the most important thing that you have to do as an AD for a while. You can settle in, get your bearings. Somebody asked me last night, well, what's he going to do if he doesn't have to hire a coach? It's like NIL. That was my answer. Raise money. Both for the department, of course, because you still have to do that, but raise money. That's all he's going to have to do for a while. At least the big picture stuff, absent the day-to-day operations and all that, but the big things he's going to have to do, there's not a coaching search imminent.
We, just the three of us together, have certainly been around long enough, and we're relatively young, to know that the unknown and the unforeseen is a day away in college athletics. So you never know. But yes, Borky, I would agree that if things flow in a normal way, whatever normal is in college athletics, then no, whoever the new athletics director is at Mississippi State, whether it's Zach Selman or someone else, shouldn't have to make any major coaching hires in the immediate future. But again, we have seen the unforeseen happen on a far more regular basis than perhaps anybody would like to think about.
Speaking of conversations I had last night, somebody asked me what happens if Chris Lemonis finishes 14th out of 14 again. I said, it's not going to happen, but
then you have a coaching search.
No way.
Oh, I'd be willing to bet money on that one. Finishing last back-to-back years at Mississippi State in baseball? No. Nobody's tolerating
the guy that delivered the one thing that was missing in Mississippi State baseball 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago. Oh. Back-to-back last place finishes? No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No chance.
All right.
It's not going to happen.
Good news, though. That's probably not going to happen, yeah. I don't feel like that's got any chance of happening.
Yes, the good news is, no doubt. I mean, you look at Mississippi State baseball last year, you're like, you can't have that many significant injuries again.
Yeah. You should.
You just can't.
Right.
Hopefully you don't. All right. So, sticking with the Mississippi State theme,